My wife stopped me this morning and she said, "Hey, I like that watch." Now, for a guy running a YouTube channel, you'd think I hear this every so often, but honestly, I don't. She sees these come and go, and often without a word unless I ask her, and then she's nice enough to answer me. But this time she stopped me out of nowhere, and that was unusual. She said that was a nice watch, or that is a nice watch. And so I took it off, I handed it to her. She took a look and she nodded, and she said, "Well, of course it is. It's a Grand Seiko." I said, "How do you even know about Grand Seiko?" "I stand informed," she said. I share this story not because it was a particularly unique experience, but mainly just the comment, the knowledge that Grand Seiko was a nice watch. Of course it's nice. It's a Grand Seiko was made. That to me was wild. Now Grand Seiko does have quite the following, to be fair. I mean, every brand has those that really like it, but Grand Seiko has quite the loyal fan base. Why, right? One word really comes to mind in my ideas, and that is value. But that can often come at a cost. So value for money is a phrase used a lot in this hobby. It's a phrase that I've spoken about a lot. It can be misleading, frankly. It can get you to buy something because you feel like it's a deal. It can drive consumerism. It can also sometimes help you overlook a watch's shortcomings. So does this watch have good value for money? What are its shortcomings? We'll get to it. So the specs first, the SBGA415 is the winter edition of the Heritage Collection released in 2016 as a reimagining of the 62GS, which is from 1967. 4 watches, 4 seasons. Now winter and spring are the most popular and the most similar to each other. Both are titanium and both are made with a spring drive 9R65 movement. The summer and autumn are similar to each other as well. They're both in steel and they include the 9S85 high beat automatic movement. The spring and winter models are by far my favorite. The grade 5 titanium and the spring drive included in here highlight why they're popular. The real reason, really, on both those models is the dial. And Grand Seiko is highlighted always by their beautiful dials. Now, the dial on this watch features this beautifully textured pattern that's supposed to be reminiscent of freshly fallen snow. It's complemented by the same iconic Grand Seiko hands and indices, a smooth sweeping blued seconds hand, and wonderfully polished indices. The smooth sweeping nature of the spring drive movement is really hard to know without seeing it. So I really want you to take a look at this. This is my Rolex Explorer slowed down to a quarter of its speed. And this is the Grand Seiko at the same quarter speed. Now, do I care about smooth sweeping? A little. I mean, it's a cool party trick. It's wild to see something so consistently smooth when I'm used to normal automatic watches. But is it that important? Not necessarily. The dimensions though, this is a 40mm watch. It's grade 5 titanium, case is light, but somehow still substantial. It isn't the right fit for everyone, especially if you like heavier watches. It'll surprise you, its light nature. Some feel as though it's more of a toy because it's too light, but I love it because it disappears throughout the day. Now the Zaratsu polishing gives it that signature Grand Seiko mirror finish. A little known fact about Zaratsu polishing, the word Zaratsu is actually derived from the German word Salaz, which is phonetically pronounced Zaratz in German. It's a buffing machine that the Japanese company bought and adopted years ago, but that's basically where the name and the style came from. Either way, it's a nice accent, but is it a complete game changer? No, but it's cool, especially in titanium as it is here. Now on the wrist, the SBGA415 wears like a dream. The 12.5mm thickness is misleading, honestly. It feels much thinner than that spec. It can slide easily under a cuff, though I don't typically wear it like that. I wear it a lot more casually. Now let's talk about what's under the hood. The SBGA415 is powered by the Grand Seiko's in-house spring drive movement, and it's pretty cool. It's mechanical, it's quartz. Now there are more videos on spring drive elsewhere, but the integrated circuit built into a normal mechanical movement combines the accuracy and electromagnets with the original genius and technical requirements of a mainspring and drivetrain. Now some may not want it because they prefer the standard Swiss lever escapement that was invented and has remained, frankly, relatively unchanged for 200 years. Then others will see this as an advancement in a watch escapement, one of the first of its kind alongside the coaxial escapement or the dual impulse from Grand Seiko. Now I would fall in the latter group, and that's really for one main reason, and that is that the design is still mechanically driven. Like, it doesn't require a battery to operate, and therefore it can continue to run for years to come, or at least that's the theory. Now, I don't know enough about longevity of integrated circuits to argue otherwise. It's got a 72-hour power reserve, it's modern and weekend proof, and frankly, the power reserve indicator on this dial I use a lot more than I thought I would. Now, one of the things that really impressed me about this watch is its versatility. The SBGA415 looks just as stunning indoors as it does outdoors, under artificial light or natural sunlight. The way the light plays off the dial in the hands it's mesmerizing. It's kept me wearing it time and time again, and I've really had a hard time keeping it off my wrist. And so that's why I added it to my collection. The Grand Seiko has a lot of things that are great about it, and I'll continue to go over that through this review, but I added it to my collection because of the things that Grand Seiko stands for. The things that are amazing about this watch are all things that I wanted to try. I wanted to see how I would enjoy it, how it would fit into my collection. And I really loved it. Now, I'll have a separate video going over my current watch collection that I'm actually gonna do relatively soon here, just because I've had new additions and my structure of the 3 core watches has changed. And what does that mean, and how do I use these different watches now? So I'll go over that in a separate video, which goes a little bit more in depth on my personal feelings about this watch in my watch collection. So if you're interested in that, stick around. Subscribe and you'll be able to see that video coming up shortly. But on with the review. The sapphire crystal here is clear. It's almost like there's nothing there at all. There's an anti-reflective coating though, and it ensures you have really no trouble reading the time at a glance. Now this does feature a Screwdown Crown, so it allows you to have an extra layer of water resistance, and it makes it more suitable for most people what they prefer in water resistance at 100 meters of water resistance. Now I've already worn this in the warehouse, a trip to Georgia, in the rain, in the snow here in Indiana, and I've had no issues whatsoever. But what are the problems, right? If it's great value for money, it has to have some issues, right? Especially at $6,000, like, isn't that the phrasing? It's all about value for money. There has to be problems. And I would point out a few, and I'll go over those. Number one is serviceability. Now, the downsides of a spring drive movement is that only Grand Seiko can service it, right? No one else, like an independent watchmaker, can really work on the watch because of the escapement being so specific to Grand Seiko. And it may be more expensive than if you had an independent watchmaker work on it. Number two is the bracelet and lug width. It's a 21 millimeter lug width, which means your 20 millimeter straps will leave gaps, or you'll have to buy new ones, or you'll just have to stick to the bracelet. Now the bracelet does have its issues. It features pin and collar system here instead of screwed links, so adjustment is difficult on your own, but doable. The worst part really is that there's no micro adjust. Now there is a half link on each side. Because it doesn't have micro adjust, you're gonna have a hard time getting it to fit your wrist perfectly. So typically it's gonna either be too loose, or too tight. In my case, it's too tight. I do currently have it on a strap. This is an Artem strap in 21 millimeters, but I'll probably be going back to the bracelet soon. It just doesn't feel the same way that it did when it was on the bracelet, so I'll probably switch back, or I'll try and find something else in 21 millimeters, but this is the only strap I have in that specific size. Number three is lume. So there's no lume visible on the watch. It's a dress watch, so really that doesn't bother me that much. Just know that if you're a lume guy or you envision yourself wearing this at night, there's no lume anywhere on this watch. At night, you can't read the time. Number four, winding the watch is an experience that I've really grown to enjoy. My Moon watch, I wind every morning that I plan to wear it, and I love doing that. It's a pleasurable experience, and my other watches, I wind them typically also to wake them up when they've died in order to get the mainspring going, and I really enjoy that. But a Seiko, I don't really enjoy that much. Now, the magic lever escapement that's in this and in most Seikos just gives you a gritty feeling of when you're winding it. Though the magic lever escapement is well made and I enjoy the engineering aspect of it, like it doesn't give you that same sort of refined feeling. So I'll try winding it for you so you can actually see exactly what I'm talking about. This is obviously the Grand Seiko, so you can hear it. And this is my Rolex Explorer. And so that is something you just have to know. If you're someone that enjoys that experience or you don't like particularly winding these, then that's something you have to be aware of. Yes, I prefer winding my Rolex or several of my other watches. It's not a deal breaker for me, but I would try one out if you're in a Grand Seiko. and you're wearing it or you're trying it on at a jeweler shop, like definitely try winding it and see if that bothers you or if it doesn't. And to be fair, I've tried this on multiple Grand Seiko watches. There have been at least 4 that I have worn or tried on in a jewelry shop, and all of them have felt the same to me, and I haven't liked them in any of those scenarios. Number 5, to be honest, it's the brand, and it's because the name includes Seiko in it. Now, that doesn't bother me at all, right? I respect Seiko, their innovations, the fact that they've kept a lot of people in this hobby because they've had less expensive offerings with fantastic manufacturing capabilities that have allowed them to sell watches under $100, even today, that have a mechanical movement in them. And all of that stuff, I think, has driven this hobby further. It got me into watches. My first automatic watch was an Orient, which is a Seiko brand. And then my second one was another Seiko, right? So that got me into mechanical watches. But for a lot of people, they'll look at this and the fact that Seiko's on the dial, they will see that as a cheaper brand or a cheaper brand name placed on a watch retailing at $6,200. And I can't blame them for that sort of idea also because they may not know, right? Brands are just stories that we believe in and we buy into, right? I like this watch, and not just because of the name though, but because of how it looks and how I enjoy wearing it. I respect the movement inside. I respect the engineering. I respect the pricing that they choose for this watch. It's a beautiful watch for $5,000 to $6,000. Now, I do really like the Seiko brand, as I said, and I appreciate all they've stood for on watches, but a lot of people will have an issue with wearing a watch that says Seiko on it. Maybe also because they want to wear a watch that makes them feel fancy, or when someone asks them what they're wearing, they say, oh, it's a Omega, or it's a Rolex, or it's a Breitling. Like, they may enjoy saying that. And at the moment, because it's relatively unknown in the wider span, I guess aside from my wife, like, people may have an issue with the fact that it says it on the dial. And I would be remiss to not make that a point. Now, people will dislike that, but that is a fact of the name being included on the dial. Again, good history behind Grand Seiko. I have no problem with it. I actually really enjoy the heritage and history of this particular brand. But the uninitiated or the unknown people that are not necessarily in this hobby, that are ancillary and on the sidelines, they may have an issue with the fact that it says Seiko on it. And I could see that causing Seiko to have an issue scaling this brand to a wider audience as a result, outside of just watch enthusiasts. But again, that's just speculation. Well, obviously time will tell. They have grown dramatically over the last few years. So I think the fact that they're doing what they're doing at the price they're doing it means that it'll probably scale no matter what. So for me, what's the verdict, right? In my own collection, I love the watch. I'll talk about that more in my watch collection video and how it fits into my overarching collection. But if you're out there looking for a watch, or you're looking at Grand Seiko or this particular watch, this, I mean, it's fantastic. It combines Japanese precision to an old classic design. The Grand Seiko SBGA415 is definitely worth considering. It's from stunning aesthetics to its impeccable craftsmanship. It's a watch that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Or cause your wife to ask, what are you wearing? But don't take my word for it. Go check one out. Go to a Grand Seiko dealership. They've become popular. You can see them everywhere. You can go to Teddy's new boutique, right? And try one out and get an idea of whether or not this is a good fit for you. But what do you guys think about this watch in particular, or Grand Seiko as a brand? Do you disagree with anything I had to say? Let's talk in the comments. I'll see you next one. Peace.